From Mark Regev, who is a senior advisor to Israel's Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu.
Humanitarian trucks could not go through the Gaza crossing yesterday. Is Israel blocking the entry, or is it Egypt?
So our goal, now that the military operation has resumed, is to pursue Hamas vigorously. We will destroy Hamas's military machine, and we will end their control over the Gaza Strip. At the same time, we will, in parallel, make a maximum effort to do two things. One, to differentiate between the terrorists, who are our bitter enemy, and the civilian population, who are not the target of our operation. We will do everything to safeguard that civilian population. And as well, we will facilitate the entrance into the Gaza Strip of humanitarian support for the civilians of Gaza. So as we move in now to crush Hamas, we will in parallel continue to facilitate humanitarian support for the people of Gaza. That is part of our credo, that is part of our strategic goal. Once again, we will do everything we can to keep Gazan civilians outside of the crossfire between the IDF and the terrorists, and we will do everything to facilitate that population receives water, medicine, food, shelter. And we urge the international humanitarian organizations to be there on the ground, specifically in the designated safer areas where we expect lots of civilians to congregate for an interim period until the fighting is over.
Ambassador Regev, I would like to repeat the question of Mr. Paul Adams from the BBC. Perhaps we didn't answer it fully. There are reports that Israel is seeking to create a buffer zone in the Gaza Strip. The United States has said that it opposes any change to the size of the Gaza Strip. Is this buffer zone being considered, and would this be a temporary or permanent measure?
So we have spoken that in the framework of the post-conflict relationships, Israel will have to have a security envelope. We can never again allow terrorists to cross the border and butcher our people the way they did on October 7th. And we can't take our eye off the ball. And so in a post-conflict reality, a post-Hamas reality, Israel will maintain for the foreseeable future overall security control. That will be a necessary prerequisite of any post-Hamas reality. Now, if you ask me about a buffer zone, let me be clear. You won't have a situation in the future where you can have Hamas terrorists on the border, directly on the border, positioned just to cross over and kill our people again. There will have to be security arrangements on the ground to prevent that from happening. That is not Israel taking territory from Gaza. On the contrary, that is creating security zones where you have a special situation on the ground which limits the ability of people to enter Israel to kill our people. It's common sense. The Israelis will never stand for a situation that they had until October 7th, where Hamas terrorists are directly on the border and can rush through and kill our people at will. That's not a situation we're going to return to, and there will have to be security arrangements on the ground that prevent that from happening.
Thank you. A question from Dr. Abby Korb. This week, Iran stated that Hamas has only used 10% of their arsenal. Do you have any comments on that?
I don't want to go into specific numbers, but it's clear Hamas has not yet been defeated. It's clear that Hamas is still launching rockets against Israel. It's clear that Hamas still controls large parts of the Gaza Strip. And we have work ahead of us. And our goal is, once again, the destruction of Hamas's military machine and the end of its political control of the Gaza Strip. Anything short of that is, from our point of view, unacceptable. Israelis simply refuse to return to a reality that we had on October 7th in the morning, that a terrorist group committed to killing our people, to butchering our people, to massacring our people, a terrorist group controls an enclave right on our border. No people should have to live with that threat, and the Israeli people refuse to do so.
A question from Chloe Cornish. Ambassador Regev, the United Nations and humanitarian agencies have said that there is no safe place in Gaza because fighting has been so widespread. Could you please explain what you mean by safe?
So, I reject that. First of all, I'd like to hear a little more from the humanitarian agencies about Hamas's systematic use of Palestinian civilians as a human shield for its war machine. We were saying consistently, for example, that Hamas is abusing and brutalizing hospitals. And yet none of the humanitarian agencies that I heard of were actually condemning Hamas for doing so. All the condemnation is always pointed in one direction. Yet the Israeli government, the government of the United States, the government of Great Britain, the European Union have all publicly said that Hamas has a strategy of using Gaza's civilians as a human shield for its terror organization. Deliberately, Hamas puts its military infrastructure under civilian neighborhoods, under hospitals, in mosques, in schools, and in the past there have been documented cases where they've even used UN facilities as a shield for their military machine. Now, I reject the comment that there aren't safer places in the Gaza Strip, precisely because we have specifically designated these places. The maps are there. People can see where they are and where people can go to. And once again, we've shared them with the humanitarian organizations precisely so they can beef up their effort to deal with the civilians who will relocate to these safer areas.
Thank you. A question from the floor.
Hi, Anat Pell, The Wall Street Journal. Israel shared a map, a grid map. How are you going to implement this? A lot of Palestinians do not have, they have patchy internet. It's a bit hard to understand. And second question, are there still ongoing talks to get fighting-aged women and men out of Gaza?
In my statement before, our team has come back from Doha. Yes, and do you need me to repeat the statement? The second point is was about the grid map. Yes, the people of Gaza know Gaza better than anyone else, and they know the locations. And
we're just going to leave that news conference there. One of the main takeaways from that is that Mark Regev, who is, of course, a senior advisor to Israel's Benjamin Netanyahu, is saying that Israel will facilitate the entry of humanitarian aid into Gaza as the